Hello, class. Welcome back to our Act 3, Scene 3 video. We kind of left off here with Othello. Oh, curse of marriage, that we can call these delicate creatures ours and not their appetites. This whole idea of objectification, possession of females. So, again, the theme of honesty, this notion of duplicity of Iago, is he being honest with himself, with us through omniscience? Yes. Is he being duplicitous and deceptive with everybody else, and guilty of illogical reasoning, fallacies? Absolutely. He's extremely persuasive. So what happens here is now Desdemona comes in and the handkerchief drops, right? And Amelia, while talking to Othello, Amelia picks up the handkerchief and she says, I am glad I have found this napkin. Line 297. Still Act 3, Scene 3. This is a long scene. This was her first remembrance from the Moor, because we learn he gave her the handkerchief as a gift, and supposedly it has magical powers. My wayward husband hath 100 times wooed me to steal it, but she so loves this token, for he conjured her she should ever keep it, that she reserves it evermore about her to kiss and talk to. I'll have the work taken out and give it to Iago. What he will do with it, heaven knows, not I. I nothing but to please his fantasy. Wow. She knows what she's doing is wrong. She tells us she knows what she's doing is wrong, but she's doing it anyway, much like Macbeth. So again, we have this idea when we think about critical thinking skills, trying to recognize the reality. When you know something is illogical, recognize that before making that decision. Notice how, right, he wooed her to steal it. This idea that he manipulates and uses his wife, just like he does with Cassio, just like with Iago. He appears one way and seems another. I'm sorry, he seems one way and in reality is another. He appears one way and is another, right? So then his wife, Iago, comes in and she says, I have a thing for you. And he says, a thing for me. It's a common thing. And she says, ha, line 310. And you'll notice if you look in the margins, thing, common, there's kind of a little bit of sexual banter. If you watch a lot of video versions of this, some of them portray this scene in a bedroom. So again, when you think about how the play comes alive on stage or in a movie, that's the element of theater, right? The element of play is called spectacle. Everything you see on stage, all the characters' movements, so on and so forth, their costumes. And she says, and he says, to have a foolish wife, right? Because he's considering, right? He says he's continuing, but again, he has those hesitations, just like with Othello, when he's manipulating people, he pauses, he hesitates, he uses reverse psychology, right? He says, a thing for me, it is a common thing. And she says, like finish your thought. And he says, to have a foolish wife. Much like he hesitated earlier when he told Desdemona that a good woman would raise kids and clip coupons, suckle babies, and something else he said. Oh, is that all? What will you give me now for the same handkerchief? And he says, what handkerchief? She says, what handkerchief? Why, that the Moor first gave Desdemona, that which you often sit and did bid me to steal. Line 315, right? And she tells him she has the handkerchief, right? He gets it from her. She even says, poor lady shall run mad when she shall lack it. Line 325, right? Because she says, if it be not for some purpose of import, give it me again, right? So she gives it to him, right? Um, and then she says, if it's not important, give it back because it's really important to her and she's going to go crazy, which is playing right into Iago's hand. So why would she give it to him if she knows first? And then it's almost like she realizes her mistake and she's trying to go back. Again, we can see the critical thinking process. And it's something so simple as stealing a handkerchief. You may say, oh, that's not that big of a deal. Well, it is because of the consequences. Um, what Macbeth recognizes is that he's going to actually commit an act of murder. Um, And that is a really big deal. So you may say, well, it's just a handkerchief. But when you look at the causal chain of what happens from here on out, something so simple as stealing a handkerchief could have a very serious effect in life. So, that being said, Amelia leaves. We get the omniscience from Yango, right? He says, line 325, the more already changes with my poison. Dangerous conceits are in their nature's poisons, which at the first are scarce found to distaste, but with a little act upon the blood burn like the mines of sulfur. Once you get used to something, the more, right, he gets used to Iago's ideas. He's making this analogy between ideas and poison or something distasteful, right? But the more you get used to the taste, the easier it is. So his ideas, it's interesting how he uses the analogy poison, because honestly, he is poisoning Othello's mind. So it's very symbolic. Once again, though, he's being omniscient. When he speaks to us, when he's alone on stage and he tells us what he's thinking, we get that omniscience. He is actually honest because his ideas are poisonous and metaphorically like poison. So, what does he say? As Othello, he's relishing. I mean, we see the Schadenfreude. He's relishing that it's working, right? He now knows how he's going to further his plan because he's got the handkerchief. And he says, I did say, look, it's right around line 340, a little bit before, it's 338. So I think before when I said 355, it was 25. My eyes are my eyes are going bad here. Yeah. So bottom line is all the speech with Iago and Othello coming in. It starts on 329, right? And then the poison quotes are 334 down to 339, right? And then 339 where I picked up. I did say, so look where he comes, not poppies, nor mandragora, nor all the drowsy syrups of the world shall ever medicine thee to that sweet sleep which thou odest yesterday. We have the theme of sleep as a metaphor, a literal, right? A literal example of the paranoia of characters, right? After Macbeth kills Duncan, and then he kills the guards. He's extremely paranoid, right? And remember, he says, Macbeth doth murdered sleep. He can't sleep again. So sleep is a physical manifestation of his paranoia. And in this play, we see it as well. Now, again, remember, Shakespeare is writing about paranoia and anxiety, right? Before the science of psychology was even around. So it's a very, very interesting way to describe how one cannot sleep well when one is paranoid. But he also, again, we see the Schadenfreude in that passage. Um, so Othello comes in, right? Uh, and he's very forceful with Iago. He becomes obsessed with his jealous thoughts, and he's now much like Rodrigo. He's calling out Iago. And remember, when Rodrigo calls out Iago, Iago's able to flip it on him, right? Oh, well, oh, okay, right? If you're that sad and you're going to kill yourself, right, the first time, why don't you just give me all your money and I'll help you, right? And then after the brouhaha with Cassio and Rodrigo says, my money's almost spent. I started this fight. I had to get in a fight tonight. You know, what's going on here? It seems like you're letting me down. And Iago's like, wait a minute, Cassio's no longer lieutenant. Hey, buddy, this is actually a good thing. And Rodrigo's like, oh, okay, cool. He's always able to spin it. Same here, right? He's quite the manipulator. So Othello, right? He's saying I didn't used to worry about this. I didn't think about this, and now all I keep thinking about is right. Uh, Found not Cassio's kisses on her lips, right? And Iago's I'm sorry, right? And he's basically he's very graphic with his sexual disgust starting on line 353. If I had been happy if the general camp pioneers and all had tasted her sweet body, so I had nothing known. Oh, now forever farewell the tranquil mind, farewell content, farewell the plum tunes and the big wars that make ambition virtue. He's saying he would have rather not known. It's interesting how he reacts. This idea of knowledge and it being power. right? Because Brabantio seems to be so upset in the beginning that Desdemona didn't tell him she was marrying Othello. In addition to that, here Othello is actually saying, "I wish I didn't know, because now that I know, it's plaguing me." Right? Farewell, all of these normalcies. He lists them all out in his speech, right? Um, and Iago, right? Again, just sitting back. He says, "Well, is it possible, my lord?" Line 366. And Othello says, "Villain, be sure thou prove my love a whore. Be sure of it. Give me the ocular proof," right? Logos, right? He's very frustrated by his jealousy. Remember, he was very cool, calm, and collected in the beginning of the play, but now we've seen his character's transformation, much like loyal Macbeth transforms from loyal Macbeth to murderous traitor. Hamlet transforms, right, from a critical thinking prince to a murderer, right? Othello here transforms from cool, calm, and collected to riddled by jealousy, which is fueled by his paranoia. Um, Give me the ocular proof. Thou hadst better been born a dog than answer my waked wrath. Nice alliteration, right? And so then Iago immediately, right, has it come to this, right? And notice how he finally kind of responds after Othello saying all the things. If you're not right, this you're going to have to endure my wrath. And so what does Iago say? Oh grace, oh heaven, forgive me. Line 382. Are you a man? Have you a soul or sense? God buy you, take mine office. O wretched fool, that lovest to make thine honesty a vice. O monstrous world, take note, take note. O world, to be direct and honest is not safe. I thank you for this profit, and from hence I'll love no friend, with such love breeds some offense. And he says, Thou, nay, stay, thou shouldest be honest. I should be wise, for honesty's a fool, and loses that it works for. Right? And then Othello says, By the world, I think my wife be honest, and think she is not. I think thou art, and think thou art not. I'll have some proof. So again, Iago spins it, right? Oh, well, this is where my honesty's gotten me, right? Take my job. I'll never love another friend. I'll never be honest with another person. He immediately creates this red herring, right? Because Othello is basically saying, I want proof. And if you don't have proof and you made these slanderous accounts, you're going to have to pay for it. So Iago immediately just deflects attention. Oh, it's what a crime to be honest. How dare I? I should have never said anything. Take my job. I mean, he really flips it on him. Um, Honesty is a vice, oh monstrous world. To be direct and honest is not safe. Again, it's just so profound how he's able to use language and fallacious appeals and illogical emotions and assumptions and things of that nature to deflect attention when he is, in some ways, found to be suspicious by both Roderigo and by both Othello. Um, so essentially, right, the plan continues, right, and he says, "I'm going to give you the proof." Um, we had that moment where he says, "I was laying next to Cassio." Um, line 4. I mean, again, this is a really long scene. Right around line 425. One of this kind is Cassio. In sleep, I heard him say, "Sweet Desdemona, let us be wary, let us hide our loves." And then, sir, would he gripe and wring my hand, cry, "O sweet creature," and then kiss my heart as if he plucked up my kisses by the roots that grew upon my lips, lay his leg over my thigh and sigh and kiss, and then cry, "Cursed fate that gave thee to the Moor." And the fellow says, "Monstrous, monstrous." So he says, when I was sleeping next to Cassio, he seemed to have what appeared to be a romantic dream about Desdemona, and was putting his leg over Iago and kissing him, and basically reenacting what he did with Desdemona with Iago in bed, which those of you that are interested in queer theory, again, when Horatio says at the end of the play, "I'd rather die than live without you," Hamlet is going back in the play. All of the "I love yous" is Horatio and Hamlet's friendship. A little bit more than that. Has Macbeth kind of transcended her femininity in some ways? And are we looking at a same-sex relationship in Macbeth? Here, I mean, in some ways, this scene seems very homoerotic. It also convinces Othello, so this type of behavior was considered normal, perhaps. Again, soldiers, possibly. There's a lot going on. Um, but in some ways, you know, is there something going on between Othello and Iago? Right? There's a lot of I love yous, my love for you, things of that nature. So as I kind of wrap up 3-3 here, we see Iago finally says to him, line 459, patience, I say, your mind may change. Um, and as the scene ends 3-3, right? Iago tells him, I am your own forever, in line 486. And we've got Act 3 coming to a close. And again, he's gotten everybody to trust him because of his dishonesty. Um, he's now the lieutenant. His plan has worked. Cassio's room ruined. Desdemona's suspected. He's got the handkerchief. And he's kind of relishing in the sweetness of his success, is that he's maintained this image of being honest all while furthering his plan. Um, it's very, very interesting. So I'm going to stop the video here and we'll pick up with Act 3, Scene 4 here in a minute. Thank you for your patience. And Schadenfreude personified is Iago for sure. I hope you're enjoying the lectures because this is a great source for any one of your SA4s.